an abandoned baby she raised without knowing his father was a wealthy, powerful man. Years later, she fell in love with him. During a rainy night, the sound of drops hitting the hospital windows mixed with Amelia's hurried footsteps. The night shift in the emergency room didn't usually offer a break, and this night was no exception. Amelia Torres, a dedicated and generous-hearted nurse, was adjusting a patient's IV when an unexpected noise caught her attention. It was a cry, soft but insistent, that seemed to come from the main entrance. With a quick glance at the monitors, she made sure her patients were stable before heading toward the source of that heartbreaking sound. As she opened the emergency room doors, she found a small basket wrapped in blankets. Her heart skipped a beat. Leaning in to inspect it, she discovered a baby, just a few days old, crying loudly, as if his entire small world depended on being heard. His skin was red from the cold, and his closed eyes reflected a vulnerability that was soul-crushing. Amelia carefully lifted him, hugging him against her chest for warmth as she carried him inside. The entire hospital seemed to stop at the news. Who would have left a baby there? The authorities were immediately notified, but as the hours passed, it became clear there were no clues about the parents or the reason for the abandonment. Amelia couldn't take her eyes off the little one. Something in his innocent gaze, in the way he snuggled in her arms, awakened a protective instinct she had never felt before. Days went by, and the investigations made no progress. The authorities, faced with a lack of evidence, began to treat the case with less priority. Amelia, however, couldn't ignore the little boy. "I can't let this child end up in a system that won't care for him as he deserves," she thought. In a decision that would change her life forever, she would adopt him, protect him, and love him as if he were her own. The process was not simple. There was endless paperwork, interviews with social workers, and inquisitive looks from colleagues who questioned how a nurse with a modest salary could take care of a baby. But Amelia was not intimidated. The day she received official confirmation that she could be the little boy's legal guardian, she cried with joy. She named him Leo, a name that resonated with hope and strength, two qualities she knew he would need to give him a better life. The years passed, and Leo grew up in a home full of love, though humble. Amelia worked long hours, but every free moment was dedicated to her little boy. Together, they built a routine that was far from luxurious, but full of laughter and tenderness. However, Amelia couldn't ignore the limitations of her situation. Every time she saw the spark of curiosity in Leo's eyes, or heard him talk excitedly about everything he wanted to learn, she felt a weight in her chest. "This child deserves more opportunities," she told herself. With this determination, Amelia began to plan a drastic change. She had heard of St. Jude's Hospital, a prestigious institution in the big city, known for its standards of excellence as well as its demands. She submitted her resume, hoping that an opportunity there could give Leo the future he deserved. When she received the job offer, she felt a mix of excitement and fear. Could they adapt to life in such a big city? How would Leo react to leaving behind the place he had known as home? The day of the move was bittersweet. Amelia packed her few belongings while Leo ran around the house, picking up his favorite toys. Before closing the door for the last time, Amelia allowed herself a moment to look around. That home had been a refuge in difficult times, but now it represented the beginning of a new stage. Their arrival in the city was a clash of realities. The hustle and bustle, the lights, and the rush contrasted with the calm of their small town. Amelia tried to hide her nervousness while Leo, with his big, curious eyes, seemed fascinated by everything. When she arrived at St. Jude's Hospital, Amelia felt all her effort was worth it. It was an imposing place, with a professional atmosphere that reflected the seriousness of its reputation. The first day was exhausting. getting to know the team, familiarizing herself with the protocols, and making sure Leo felt comfortable in his new home took up every minute. However, as she lay down that night, exhausted but satisfied, she couldn't help but feel a tingling of excitement. She knew the challenges were great, but so were the opportunities. What Amelia didn't know was that her arrival at St. Jude's Hospital would not only mean a change in her career, but also in her heart. What do you think Amelia's biggest challenge will be in the new city? Will she and Leo be able to adapt? Tell us your thoughts below. A new man, a past shadow, St. Jude's Hospital, with its pristine hallways and a constant flow of patients and staff, seemed to have a life of its own. Among the many professionals who walked its corridors, Dr. Leo Donovan stood out as an imposing figure. Chief physician and owner of the hospital, Dr. Donovan was a man who radiated authority. His serious and always focused face was a barrier that few dared to cross. His reputation as a brilliant surgeon was impeccable, but it was also known that he was distant, cold, and with a personal life carefully closed off to others. Amelia saw him for the first time during a team meeting. He was standing at the front, reviewing surgical procedures with a precision that bordered on perfection. His voice, deep and confident, resonated in the room, while the others listened attentively. For Amelia, a newcomer, Dr. Donovan was intimidating, but there was something in his gaze that she found familiar. A subtle sadness, hidden behind his impenetrable exterior, awakened a curiosity in her that she couldn't explain. The first direct contact between them was brief, but revealing. Amelia had been reviewing a patient's history when Dr. Donovan approached to ask for details about a procedure he was about to perform. "Are you the new nurse?" he asked, his tone dry but polite. "Yes, Amelia Torres," she replied with a smile that, although not returned, didn't fade. The interaction was quick, but Amelia noticed the way Dr. Donovan avoided eye contact for more than a few seconds, as if he was afraid someone might see beyond his facade. As the days passed, the interactions between them became more frequent. Although Dr. Donovan continued to maintain a professional distance, he couldn't help but notice the way Amelia treated the patients. There was something about her, a genuine warmth, that seemed to illuminate even the most difficult situations. One night, while they were reviewing a complicated case together, Dr. Donovan found himself watching her as she spoke. Her voice was soft but firm, and her presence had a calmness that contrasted with the intensity of their work. "Dr. Donovan, is everything okay?" Amelia asked, when she noticed he had been silent for longer than usual. "Yes, my apologies. I was thinking," he replied, quickly looking away. It was a brief moment, but enough for Dr. Donovan to realize that Amelia made him feel something he had avoided for years: vulnerability. Dr. Donovan's past was a shadow that followed him everywhere. Years ago, he had been deeply in love with Clara, a woman who, with her charisma and beauty, had captured his heart. But one day, without warning, she disappeared, taking with her not only his love, but also his trust in people. Since then, Dr. Donovan had buried his emotions under layers of work and professional perfection, closing the door to any relationship that could break down his defenses. However, Amelia's presence was different. She didn't seek to break anything. She was simply there, with her constant smile and her way of making even the most chaotic days a little more bearable. One afternoon, while they were reviewing a pediatric case, Amelia let out a laugh as she remembered something funny. Leo, her son, had said that morning. "He has an incredible sense of humor for a 4-year-old, though I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing that he can imitate me too," she said, laughing softly. Dr. Donovan, who rarely showed any emotion outside the operating room, allowed a small smile to appear on his lips. It was such an unexpected gesture that Amelia noticed it immediately. "I did it," she joked. "I made you smile. I should mark this day on the calendar." "Don't get too excited. It's a rare thing, but not impossible," he replied, with a glint of dry humor in his tone. That was the beginning of something new. Although Dr. Donovan remained reserved, Amelia managed to find small cracks in his armor. Through casual conversations, shared moments in the break room, and collaborations on challenging medical cases, the two began to get to know each other. But just as that connection seemed to be strengthening, Dr. Donovan's past returned to haunt him. One afternoon, as Amelia was finishing tidying up some files, she heard an unusual murmur among the hospital employees. Turning the corner, she saw a tall, elegant woman with an overwhelming presence standing in front of Dr. Donovan in the main hallway. Their faces were tense, and although she couldn't hear what they were saying, Amelia felt an unease she couldn't explain. The arrival of that woman, unknown to Amelia but clearly important to Dr. Donovan, marked the beginning of a storm that would test everything they were beginning to build. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. The shocking truth. The silence in the hospital hallway was palpable, broken only by the echo of Clara's footsteps as she walked toward Dr. Donovan. Her figure, impeccable and confident, seemed to dominate the space. Amelia watched from a corner, feeling a weight in her chest that she couldn't quite understand. The intensity on Dr. Donovan's face, a man accustomed to controlling his emotions, was disconcerting. His jaw was clenched, and the tension in his shoulders spoke of a mix of surprise and contained fury. "Leo," Clara began, her voice soft but with a hint of defiance. "I know you weren't expecting to see me, but we have a lot to talk about." Dr. Donovan crossed his arms, trying to hold his ground. His words were short, almost clipped. "I have nothing to say to you, Clara. You had years to talk, but you disappeared." The coldness in his tone didn't seem to affect her. Clara took a step closer, her eyes searching Dr. Donovan's with a mix of defiance and something that could be interpreted as regret. Amelia, from a distance, felt that something profound was about to be unleashed. She couldn't help but take a step back, feeling like an intruder in a moment that didn't belong to her. However, an insatiable curiosity kept her there, listening from a distance, as her heart pounded loudly. "What truth?" Dr. Donovan retorted, a spark of anger in his voice. "The truth is, you left me without an explanation. You left me thinking I had done something wrong, that I wasn't enough. Is that the truth?" Clara exhaled slowly, as if she were gathering the courage to release a weight she had been carrying for years. "I was pregnant, Leo." The air seemed to disappear from the hallway. Amelia felt the world around her stop. Dr. Donovan, for his part, became motionless, his expression shifting from disbelief to a mix of confusion and pure. "What are you saying?" His voice, for the first time, lost its controlled tone. Clara kept her gaze fixed on him, but her face showed for an instant something akin to remorse. "When I left, I was pregnant. I didn't know how to handle it, Leo. I thought I couldn't face it with you or with anyone, so I left." Dr. Donovan took a step back, as if Clara's words had hit him physically. "What happened to the baby?" he finally asked, his voice a whisper, loaded with a mix of fear and desperation. Clara looked down for a moment before facing him again. "I was completely desperate, Leo," Clara said, her voice trembling with the weight of the words. "When I realized I was pregnant, I had already decided that I couldn't keep the baby. I didn't have any documents with me, so I used a fake name at the hospital where I was treated. That same night, in a torrential downpour, as soon as I was discharged, I took my son and left him at the emergency room door. I knew someone would find him and take care of him. I didn't have the courage to look back." She paused, her eyes fixed on the floor, unable to look at Dr. Donovan as she continued. "I thought I was doing the right thing. But the truth is, I was a coward. I just abandoned him in the rain, trusting that someone else would take care of him." Her eyes filled with tears as she looked at Dr. Donovan, but his face remained impassive, each word stabbing him like a knife. "I know what I did was wrong, but at that moment I felt I had no other option," she continued, fighting to hold herself together. "I was scared of facing you, scared of failing as a mother. So I ran." The confession left the air heavy between them, each detail making it more difficult for Dr. Donovan to process what he had just heard. Dr. Donovan's face was contorted, his mind trying to process the words. Amelia, from her position, felt a knot in her stomach. Every detail she heard made a terrifying thought begin to form in her mind. "You abandoned him?" Dr. Donovan's voice rose, his pain transforming into anger. "He was my son, our son, and you just left him?" Clara tried to defend herself, but Dr. Donovan held up a hand to stop her. His emotions were on the verge of collapse, and his breathing became ragged. Clara took advantage of the moment to deliver the final blow. "You'll never find him, Leo. Neither you nor anyone else." Those words seemed designed to hurt, and they did. Dr. Donovan backed away, his gaze lost in a void that only he could see. Clara turned, and with an expression of triumph mixed with bitterness, disappeared down the hallway, leaving Dr. Donovan shattered. Amelia, paralyzed, felt how the pieces were starting to fit in her mind. The dates, the circumstances, it all matched. Leo, the child she had found in the emergency room that rainy night. Could it be possible? The idea was overwhelming, but also impossible to ignore. When she finally gathered the courage to approach him, she found Dr. Donovan leaning against the wall, his breathing heavy and his gaze lost. Amelia hesitated before speaking, but she knew she had to. "Dr. Donovan," her voice was soft, as if she didn't want to break him any more than he already was. Dr. Donovan looked up, and for the first time Amelia saw a raw pain in his eyes. He was not the distant and controlled man she had known. He was someone broken, desperately searching for something he didn't know if he could get back. "There's something I need to tell you," Amelia continued, her heart pounding. "I'm not sure, but I think I know the child Clara was talking about." Amelia's words made Dr. Donovan look at her with an intensity, his expression shifting from confusion to urgent interest. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Amelia swallowed, knowing that what she was about to say could change everything. "Leo, the child I found 4 years ago in the emergency room. I think he could be your son." The silence that followed was overwhelming, but Dr. Donovan's gaze was no longer one of despair. Now it was filled with a mix of hope and fear, as if he were about to jump into the void without knowing if he would find the ground or wings to hold him up. "What do you think Dr. Donovan will do now? How will this affect his relationship with Amelia? Tell us your thoughts below." A broken trust. Dr. Donovan stood motionless, processing Amelia's words. The idea that Leo, the child who had come to mean so much to her, could be his son, filled him with contradictory emotions. There was hope, but also fear, and deep down, a growing anxiety to discover the truth. Amelia, for her part, noticed the intensity in his gaze, and although she knew the revelation would be a hard blow, she was convinced that he had to face it. "We need to know for sure," Dr. Donovan finally said, his voice low but firm, as if each word cost him a monumental effort. Amelia nodded. "I agree. We can't live with this uncertainty." The process for the DNA test was meticulous, and tense. Dr. Donovan insisted on handling every detail personally, making sure there was no room for error. Amelia, though certain that the dates and circumstances pointed to Leo being his son, couldn't help but feel a mix of unease and sadness. If her suspicions were true, Leo would finally have his biological father. But what would that mean for her? The day the results arrived, the atmosphere was charged with nervousness. Dr. Donovan held the envelope in his hands, his face impassive, although Amelia knew that inside he was on the verge of collapse. They sat in his office, a cold, organized space that at that moment seemed more claustrophobic than ever. Dr. Donovan opened the envelope carefully, but his breathing became ragged as he read the first few lines. He closed his eyes for an instant, as if he needed to gather the strength to face reality. Finally, he held out the paper to Amelia without a word. She took it with trembling hands and read the words that confirmed what they both already suspected. Leo was Dr. Donovan's son. A torrent of emotions flooded her. On one hand, there was joy that Leo finally had a connection to his father, but on the other, a shadow of insecurity began to grow inside her. "He's my son," Dr. Donovan murmured, almost to himself, with a mix of awe and sadness in his voice. He looked up at Amelia, and for an instant he seemed to be looking for comfort in her. But that connection broke quickly, replaced by something darker. Doubt. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he suddenly asked, his tone turning cold. Amelia blinked, surprised by the change in his attitude. "Leo, I didn't know. All of this was a coincidence. I had no way of knowing." He got up from the chair, starting to pace back and forth in the office, his frustration evident. "Coincidence? Do you really expect me to believe that? You found my son, you raised him, and now you expect me to just accept that you never tried to find me?" Dr. Donovan's words fell like blows. Amelia felt a knot in her throat, but she forced herself to stand her ground. "I did the best I could for Leo. I found him abandoned, Leo. I knew nothing about you or Clara or your past. Everything I did was out of love, not self-interest." But Dr. Donovan didn't seem to be listening. The shadow of Clara's manipulations and the years of distrust blinded him. "And what if all of this was a way to get closer to me?" he continued, his words loaded with venom. "What if you knew who I was all along?" "That's unfair," Amelia exclaimed, unable to hold back. She got up from the chair, facing him directly. "You have no right to accuse me of something like that. All I've done is take care of Leo, love him as if he were my own, without knowing who his father was." The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Donovan, visibly affected, looked away, but the words were already said. Amelia felt something inside her break. She couldn't stay there, not after everything that had happened. "I can't do this, Leo. If you can't trust me, there's no point in me staying here," she said, her voice breaking. Dr. Donovan looked up, but said nothing. His pride and his confusion kept him paralyzed, unable to stop her. That same night, Amelia packed her bags. Leo, innocent and oblivious to the emotional turmoil around him, helped her pack her things, asking excitedly if they were going back home. Amelia, with held-back tears, assured him that everything would be okay. As they left the city, Dr. Donovan watched from a hospital window. His heart was shattered, but his wounded pride kept him trapped in a place of silent regret. He had lost his son, and with him, the woman who had started to give him a sense of hope. The emptiness that was left in their absence was unbearable, and although Dr. Donovan tried to convince himself that it was better this way, a part of him knew that he had made a mistake that could cost him everything. What do you think Dr. Donovan should do now? Will he find the courage to apologize? Leave your thoughts below. A second chance. The nights in Dr. Donovan's apartment had become endless. The silence weighed as much as his guilt, and the absence of Amelia and Leo was a constant reminder of his mistake. He had convinced himself that the accusations were justified, that Amelia had manipulated the situation to get closer to him. But every time he closed his eyes, the image of her hurt face and her words, "I did it all for love, not self-interest," haunted him. That phrase echoed in his mind, like an open wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. But Dr. Donovan knew he had acted out of anger, that he had let his fears and Clara's manipulations blind him. Now, all he felt was a deep emptiness. His son, his own flesh and blood, was out of his reach, and the woman who had started to give him hope had left him behind. Days turned into weeks. Dr. Donovan avoided social gatherings. His colleagues noticed his distraction, and the hospital, which used to be his refuge, felt cold and desolate. One night, sitting in his office with a glass of whiskey in his hand, he finally faced the truth. He had ruined everything, not out of a lack of love, but because of his inability to trust. And if he didn't do something about it, he would lose the only thing that truly mattered forever. He decided he could no longer stand by. The fear of rejection was overwhelming, but even more terrifying was the thought of a life without Leo and Amelia. That same night, he booked a flight to Amelia's hometown. The journey was long, both in miles and in the number of thoughts that tormented him. Dr. Donovan mentally rehearsed what he would say, but no words seemed sufficient to repair the damage. When he arrived in the small town, the contrast with his life in the big metropolis was evident. The quiet streets and modest houses were a reflection of the world Amelia had once described so fondly. Dr. Donovan drove to an address he had discreetly obtained from the hospital, feeling his anxiety grow with every foot of distance. Finally, he arrived in front of a simple house with a well-kept garden. The sound of children's laughter stopped him for a moment. Through the window, he could see Leo playing on the floor with a toy car, while Amelia watched him with a warm smile. The scene hit him like a reminder of what he could have had and what he was about to lose if he didn't find the right words. He took a deep breath and knocked on the door. A few seconds that seemed like an eternity passed before Amelia appeared. Seeing him, her expression changed from surprise to something more complex, a mix of sadness, caution, and, perhaps, a spark of emotion that she tried to hide. "What are you doing here, Leo?" she asked, her tone more neutral than he expected. "I need to talk to you, Amelia. Please, just give me a moment." She hesitated. Her instinct told her to close the door and protect the small world she had rebuilt. But something in Dr. Donovan's gaze stopped her. Finally, she nodded and stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind her. "I don't know what you expect to say that could change what happened," she began, crossing her arms like a shield. "You made it very clear what you thought of me." Dr. Donovan looked down for a moment before speaking, his voice heavy with emotion. "Amelia, I'm sorry. I'm more sorry than I can express. I was blinded by my own anger, by my fears. I didn't trust you when I should have, and that was an unforgivable mistake." Amelia watched him cautiously, his words resonating with her. "But it wasn't enough. And now you expect me to just forget what you said? To trust someone who accused me of something so cruel?" Dr. Donovan took a step closer, his gaze filled with a sincerity he hadn't shown before. "I don't expect you to forgive me easily. I know I hurt you, and I probably don't deserve your trust. But I'm here because I can't go on without trying. I can't lose you and Leo." The name of his son on Dr. Donovan's lips made Amelia feel a knot in her throat. She could see he was being honest, but the wound was still fresh. "This isn't just about me, Leo. It's about Leo. He trusts me, and I won't let someone come into his life just to break his heart." "I understand," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "But I promise you, I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I can be the father Leo deserves and the man you need." The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken emotions. Amelia looked away, trying to organize her thoughts, while Dr. Donovan waited, his heart pounding. He had planted his seed of regret, but the future was still uncertain. Amelia remained silent for a long moment, looking toward the horizon as Dr. Donovan's words echoed in her mind. There was something different about him this time, a vulnerability she had never seen before. But there was also the weight of recent wounds, of the words that had hurt her so deeply. However, when she thought of Leo, of his innocent laughter and his bright eyes, she felt that the possibility of giving him something bigger, something complete, was worth the risk. Finally, she took a deep breath and looked him directly in the eyes. "Leo, this isn't going to be easy. I don't fully trust you yet, but I want to believe that you can change. For Leo, and for what I feel for you." Dr. Donovan's eyes shone with a palpable relief, although his face still showed respect for the barriers she had put up. He took a step toward her, but kept his distance, as if he understood that his approach had to be careful. "Thank you, Amelia. I won't let you down. I'll do everything I can to prove to you that I can be the man and the father you need." She nodded, still with a certain caution, but with a spark of hope growing inside her. At that moment, the door of the house burst open, and Leo appeared with his toy car in hand, looking at them with curiosity. "Mommy, who is he?" he asked with a child's innocent candor. Amelia knelt to his level and stroked his hair. "Leo, this is Leo. He's a very important person who wants to get to know you better." The boy looked at him carefully, as if evaluating him, before smiling and extending his car toward him. "Want to play?" Dr. Donovan, surprised by how easily the child accepted him, knelt down to his level and took the car carefully. "Of course, Leo, I'd love to." That small gesture was a first step, but for Amelia, it was enough to see that maybe, just maybe, this could work. What do you think their biggest challenge will be moving forward? Can they truly become a family? Share your thoughts below. A story of love and hope. The following days were a whirlwind of emotions. Dr. Donovan stayed in town, renting a small apartment near Amelia's house. He didn't want to impose his presence, but he sought every opportunity to show her and Leo that he was willing to be a part of their lives. He took Leo to the park, helped him build block castles, and sat patiently listening to the endless stories a 4-year-old could invent. Amelia watched everything cautiously at first, but over time, she began to notice genuine changes in Dr. Donovan. He was not the distant, controlled man she had known at the hospital. Now he was someone who allowed himself to laugh, who knelt on the floor to play, and who wasn't afraid to show his love for his son. One afternoon, while Leo was napping, Dr. Donovan and Amelia sat in her small garden. The sunlight bathed the place, and there was a comfortable silence between them. "I never imagined this would be possible," Dr. Donovan finally said, breaking the silence. "Having Leo in my life, and you." Amelia looked at him, her expression softening. "Me neither. But sometimes the most unexpected things are the most worthwhile." He took her hand carefully, as if he still feared she might pull it away. "I want us to be a family, Amelia. Not just for Leo, but because I can't imagine my life without you." Tears filled Amelia's eyes, but this time they were not of sadness. She nodded slowly, her fingers lacing with his. "I want that too, Leo. But we have to do it right, together." Over time, they managed to build a life that neither of them had imagined. They returned to the city, where Dr. Donovan, with Amelia's support, began to be a present and loving father. Leo flourished under the affection of both, and his laughter filled the house they now shared. On a warm afternoon, as the three of them walked through a park, Dr. Donovan stopped to take a photo of Amelia and Leo. They were both laughing, playing with a ball. When Amelia looked at him, she saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Peace. "What?" she asked. "Nothing," he replied, lowering the camera. "I'm just thinking about how lucky I am." Leo ran toward them at that moment, pulling on their hands. Come on, let's play together." Amelia and Dr. Donovan exchanged a smile before joining him. That small moment, full of laughter and love, was the beginning of a new stage. A family against all odds, built on the foundation of forgiveness, effort, and hope. And as they played in the sun, Amelia couldn't help but think that this was just the beginning of a much bigger story. The afternoon sun filtered through the white curtains of the house, softly illuminating the home that Dr. Donovan and Amelia had built together. The sounds of children's laughter echoed from the garden, where Leo, now 9 years old, was playing with enthusiasm while Dr. Donovan chased him with a ball in his hands. "You can't catch me, Daddy," Leo shouted, teasing as he ran nimbly across the lawn. From the kitchen, Amelia watched the scene with a smile. Her hand rested instinctively on her rounded belly, where her little Eleanor was growing strong. At 6 months pregnant, the baby's soft but firm movements were a constant reminder of the love and union that had blossomed between her and Dr. Donovan. The doorbell interrupted her thoughts. Amelia walked slowly to the entrance, her figure radiant in a blue dress that gently hugged her pregnancy. When she opened it, she found her neighbor with a bouquet of fresh flowers. "Amelia, these are for you. I just wanted to congratulate you again on little Eleanor," the woman said, handing her the bouquet. "Thank you, Martha. That's so kind of you," Amelia replied, with a warmth that had come to characterize her. Back in the garden, Dr. Donovan finally caught Leo, lifting him into the air as they both laughed heartily. It was a simple moment, but full of meaning. Years ago, Dr. Donovan would never have imagined he would have this life, a family full of love, laughter, and a tranquility that had always eluded him. When Amelia came out into the garden with the bouquet in her hands, Dr. Donovan put Leo down on the ground and walked toward her. Their eyes met, and for an instant, the world seemed to stop. "How are you, my love?" Dr. Donovan asked, placing a protective hand over her belly. "I'm fine, but I think Eleanor has been practicing her karate moves again," Amelia replied with a soft laugh. Dr. Donovan knelt and placed his ear against her belly. "Listen, little Eleanor, don't get too excited in there. We want to meet you in a few months, not before." Amelia laughed, and Leo ran toward them, hugging his mother by the waist. "When is my little sister going to get here?" he asked with a child's impatience. "Very soon, honey. But in the meantime, you have to be patient," Amelia replied, stroking her son's hair. The family sat on a blanket under the biggest tree in the garden, sharing a simple snack of fruits and juices. Dr. Donovan, always attentive, made sure Amelia was comfortable, placing a cushion behind her back. "You know, I never imagined I would be this happy," Dr. Donovan said suddenly, looking at Amelia with a mix of gratitude and love. She took his hand and squeezed it gently. "Me neither, but it was all worth it." Leo, oblivious to the moment, pointed to the sky with enthusiasm. "Look, a cloud shaped like a rabbit." The family's laughter filled the air as they all looked up, enjoying the simple pleasure of being together. Later, as the sun began to set, Dr. Donovan hugged Amelia from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder as they watched Leo run among the flowers. His hand slid to Amelia's belly, feeling a small kick from Eleanor. "Our future is right here," he whispered. "In you, in Leo, in our little Eleanor." I couldn't ask for anything more. Amelia turned her head slightly to look at him, her eyes shining with love. "It's because we built all of this together, Leo, and we're just getting started." With the sky painted in shades of orange and pink, the family was wrapped in a sense of peace and fullness. This was just the beginning of a new stage, one filled with love, hope, and the infinite possibilities that the future promised them. If you enjoyed this story full of love, overcoming challenges, and hope, don't forget to leave a like and share your opinion in the comments. Your support is very important to us, and we love to know what you think. Thank you for joining us, and see you in the next exciting story that will undoubtedly touch your heart.